Hello. In this video, we will retopologize this cartoon character into a MetaHuman mesh using R3D as wrap. Hmm, but doesn't this character's right eye look strange? When I opened the file again, the texture for the right eye did not appear. Most of the time, this happens when there are two or more UVs. In this case, there are two ways to solve the problem. First method, go to Relationship Editors in Windows and go to UV Linking UV-centric. In this method, you must directly specify a texture for each UV. The second method is to delete the rest of the two UVs, except for the required UV. Select UV, and then select Copy UVs to UV Set in the UV Sets menu. This will copy the currently selected UVs to the desired UV set. Let's delete the unnecessary UV set and leave only one UV. Great! Now we need to prepare the OBJ file to export for Wrap 3D. To export a body OBJ file, it is best to first temporarily create a version combined with the head mesh and body. I combined these two meshes and renamed them appropriately. Now I think I can just export this mesh as an OBJ. Before you export, let's check to see if there is a situation where there are two UVs like the right eye. Well, there are two UVs here too. Let's adjust it to 1 and remove unused UV set in the same way as before. Since you adjusted the UV, of course delete the history. Let's export the MetaHuman mesh as an OBJ file first. These MetaHuman meshes were imported as templates using the meshWarp tool from TunaTools. In this tool, you can freely load any template scene that you have set up. All right, now we are going to select a MetaHuman LOD that has a similar poly count to the original mesh. This step is crucial in the process of converting your original mesh into MetaHuman topology. I think LOD3 is the poly count most similar to the original. It would be a good idea to work in Wrap 3D based on this LOD3 mesh for now. However, the options may vary depending on the poly count of the original character. If your original character is a high polygon character, you may need to select LOD0. Okay, now it's time to export it as an OBJ file. Let's export the original mesh first. Next, we will export the MetaHuman LOD3 mesh. You must export the mesh with the face and body combined. Additionally, Wrap 3D recognizes a mesh only if it has one UV set. All right, let's move on to Wrap 3D. Here, we will import two geometries. Please import the MetaHuman LOD3 mesh that we exported earlier, along with the original character mesh. Now, let's load some nodes needed for the wrapping process. Retopologizing in Wrap 3D can be quite a challenging process. It requires a certain level of knowledge about 3D workflows. You need to load the Select Point Pair node and the Wrapping node. However, since our character is a cartoon character, it's better to use cartoon wrapping instead of the regular wrapping, especially if the character's eyes or body shape are cartoonish. I recommend using this node. On the screen, you need to load the MetaHuman mesh in the left LoGeom node and the original character mesh in the right LoGeom node. It's important not to reverse this order, so please keep that in mind. Now, load the Select Polygons node, which allows you to mask areas of the mesh, and connect it to the MetaHuman mesh. All right, it's time to proceed with Select Point Pair. Even though there are some differences between the characters, let's click on Sync View to align the screens and get started. Many people tend to place a lot of points in Wrap 3D. However, except for important areas, you don't actually need to place that many points. The key is to place points accurately in the crucial areas. I'll start by placing points at the central areas that are not symmetrical. You can follow along with the points I place, or if you have your own key areas, feel free to use those. Having too few points can also be problematic. The topology between points is processed evenly, so certain areas might not flow into the desired shape if there aren't enough points. All right, certain areas like the breast or navel might need texture references. Let's load the textures briefly. In Wrap 3D, you can also load textures in this way and use them as references, so give it a try. Now it's time to place points symmetrically on both sides of the character. In the editor, change the symmetry of the left geometry to topological. Do the same for the right geometry. However, sometimes characters may not have symmetrical topology. In those cases, set the symmetry direction to X. For the eyes, place 8 points per side as shown on the screen. Whether it's a human or cartoon character, 8 points should roughly follow the shape. However, since it won't be perfectly accurate, we will use the brush later to make adjustments. For the mouth, unless there is a particularly unusual situation, placing just 2 points at each corner should be enough to approximate the shape. Trust me, unless the lips have an extremely unusual shape, just 2 points at each corner should suffice. In fact, separately placing points for the upper and lower lips can sometimes be counterproductive. All right, let's proceed quickly. If you're unsure where to place points for each part, feel free to pause the video and refer to my screen intermittently. While the screens are synced and running simultaneously, there might be situations where it's more efficient to unsync and work. Use this feature appropriately. Make sure to save your project files periodically to avoid losing your valuable point information. Additionally, Wrap 3D supports the ability to save point data separately for each model on both sides. Please be mindful of saving to prevent any loss of data. All right, it looks like we've made some progress. Now, let's select the Select Polygons node and mask the desired specific areas. Usually we mask areas such as the inside of the mouth or inside of the eyes areas. It's good to exclude these areas somewhat with the original MetaHuman before rigging. When selecting areas in Select Polygons, be sure to hold down the Shift key and select continuously. Otherwise, the previously selected areas will be deselected. All right, now, shall we try wrapping? Once you're ready, let's hit Compute. Overall, the work has been done to match the original shape, but some areas may have distortions or slightly odd flows. We'll address these retopology and additional correction issues in the next session. See you next time.